Welcome to the Freelance Tribe. Here we talk with skilled freelancers about their professional journey. Stay tuned for real life experiences to learn and actionable steps to take to improve your freelancing career. My name is Yuri. I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Faith Rivera, a human development professional who helps small businesses and nonprofits grow by building strategies and strategic partnerships. And today we'll discuss the intentional strategies for growth while staying true to yourself and your freelance business. So, welcome, Faith.
Awesome. Thank you, Yuri. I'm excited to be here.
Super happy to talk to you. First of all, shout out to Rachel for connecting us. And
Yes.
let's start with the first question. So, why it's important for freelancers to have a growth strategy?
Well, I always say that if you don't know where you're going, how do you know if you're going to get there, right? So I think it's really important to have intentional goals and strategies so that you can plan out those actionable steps to get where you want to go. But then you also have those steps that you can celebrate along the way. I think it's really easy to get narrow focused on what you want to achieve, which is great, but it's also good to remember to celebrate along the way too.
What is a strategy? Like, if imagine that I'm a 5-year-old, like, what is a
Okay.
strategy?
So, a strategy is kind of an end goal with intentional steps to get there. So, for example, if your big goal or your big strategy for your business is to be able to grow to, say, 6 figures, if you just speak that out into the universe and say, okay, I'm going to grow my business to 6 figures, my next question is going to be, well, how are you going to do that? What actionable, tangible steps are you going to take to get there? And start planning out the different pieces. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. Like if you already had the steps and pieces in place to get to 6 figures, you would have already been there by now. But if
Mhm.
you don't change what you're doing and really take those actionable steps that will get you to where you need to go, then your outcomes aren't going to change.
I know there are different people out there in the world, different freelancers and entrepreneurs, and some of them like I see an big ambitious goal, and I will just go through it. I will do all the things, and then find things like on the road. And some people like, oh, okay, I have this goal. I will deconstruct it to the smallest steps, and like I will take the first step that will bring me closer to my goal. So I'm curious, what is your approach of building a strategy?
So I like to have both. I like to really do my big year-long vision. So I don't necessarily create a ton of goals for each year. I really focus more on what do I want to feel like and maybe one or two big goals for the year. Some people have like 17 goals, and that to me just is too many things to focus on. And with my ADHD, I will get so distracted. And so I create a visual goal board or a vision board, and it's
Mhm.
everywhere. It's on the back of my phone screen, it's on my computer screen. And I really have just a couple, but I tie it more to emotional things like what feelings I want, what experiences I want with my husband. What is this going to mean to grow into the person that is able to do these things? But then quarterly, I do more of the deep dive of, okay, if my goal is to reach X amount of money or X amount of clients or whatnot, what are those kind of backtracking, those steps that I need to get there, knowing that it takes longer to get started to build that momentum. So, like when I first got started with my business, I had no idea what my goals and strategies were going to be because I was just kind of figuring this stuff out. But now that I've, owned a business for 10 years and have been full time as an entrepreneur for almost 2 years, it's a little bit easier to know since I've done it a little bit more. Okay, what is realistic based on where I have already commitments, where I want to put my time, my energy, my attention, and really being intentional with it so that I don't lead myself to burnout or I'm not trying to be like everyone else. Because that was definitely me at the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey is I got very easily distracted by everyone and everything out there. I'm like, ooh, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. Why not do that? And I was running around in circles. But once I got really clear on who I am, who I serve, things started falling into place a little bit more, and it was easier to build those strategies.
So you've told that when you've started, it was harder for you because you didn't know where to go. So what helped you to understand where to go?
So first and foremost was really drilling down into my why. Like, why do I want to do this business? Why do I want to help people? Why did I agree to take the leap into full-time entrepreneurship? Like, why me and why this business? There's an exercise, I think it's called like the 7 layers of why.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was told about that, I don't know, a couple years ago, and then I read it in a book last year, and it was beginning of last year. And that was a really big eye opener for me because sometimes, people ask, oh, well, why did you get into this business? And a lot of people's response is, oh, I want to make money, or oh, I want the freedom of being an entrepreneur. And so then it's taking it deeper. Okay, well, why is that important to you?
Mm.
Well, I want to be able to have control over my life and where I put my time, energy, and attention. Okay, well, why is that important to you? And drilling down until it gets really emotional. And it's really tied to your values and who you are as a person, because that's what's going to push you forward when you have rough days, when people say no, when a client cancels, when you lose a contract, when you just want to rip your hair out because no one in the world understands what you're going through. It's when you tie it into that emotional why, it's a lot easier to push forward, and it honestly kind of takes the focus off of you. A lot of people's whys are tied to people around them, like their family or their kids, or impact for future generations. And so when we take the focus off of us, it's a little bit easier to focus on the things that need to push us forward.
It also sounds a little bit like a self-motivation. So I'm curious, are you a self-motivated person?
Sometimes, we all have our rough days. If anyone tells you that entrepreneurship is rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies all the time, they're lying and run the opposite direction. I would say there are more good days than bad, but there are some days, man, where all of us are just like, man, if I could just go back to a 9 to 5 and someone else tells me what to do and someone else makes all the decisions and I just get to show up and be a cog in the wheel. There are some days that my brain goes back there. But then again, I think about my why, like why this business, why me, why did I do it? And it reminds me, okay, we got to push forward. And now that I have a team, I have people relying on me to get up and do the things that I need to do so that I can pay them.
Yeah. If you see those people who are telling that it's all like rainbows and unicorns, most likely are reading their LinkedIn posts. So and you already told a little bit about like feeling and also about your why, and it feels like finding your why is like a first step. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, like what are their next key steps that freelancers can take to design a growth strategy that not just makes them money, helps them to make money, but also aligns with their long-term vision and personal fulfillment?
Yeah, so once you know that why, I think for me, what I always tell my clients, but then also what I had to do was really focus on not just the why am I doing this, but why me and why this business, like what makes me unique and what are the values that I want to live out within this business. Because like I mentioned at the very beginning of my business, I really got distracted by all the things out there. I was saying yes to every project. I was saying yes to every opportunity. And you would think that that made me more money, but actually it was the exact opposite. That was the worst time in my business. And I was exhausted all the time. It was actually the fourth time that I experienced burnout, not as an entrepreneur, but just in life. And it was a really big eye-opening moment for me because I was like, okay, am I really set out to do this entrepreneurship thing? And once I did that like deep soul searching and reflected and journaled, but like what going back to that why, like why did I do this? It was a big eye opener that I didn't know how to talk about what I did and who I
Mm,
served. So how did I know when I was attracting the right people? And so I spent probably about 6 weeks really drilling down to, okay, who are my ideal
mm,
clients? How do I help serve them? What are those key services that I want to offer? And how do I know if they are a good fit for working with me? Because you do get to choose as a freelancer, as an entrepreneur, who you work with. You don't have to say yes to a project, but it takes a little bit of guts to
mm.
really drill down that deep because I think sometimes at the beginning, at least I know I was in a very deficit mentality that if I don't say yes to this, what if another project doesn't come? And that energy that you put out there is what you attract. So when you're worried that you're not going to have enough clients, you're right, you're going to be pushing people away. But when you have that abundance and gratitude mentality of, I'm doing what I need to do, I'm serving who I need to serve, and then working to put those intentional strategies into place, you're going to attract the right people.
How did you do that? I mean, did you follow some kind of methodologist, or maybe you read some books that told you how exactly to find your ideal client, how to prepare your offer? Like, what helped you to do that?
So I did work with a coach for about 6 weeks last summer when I kind of was going through that transition of I'm going to serve everyone to who I really wanted to serve. And working with someone external to the business was really helpful because they could take some of the emotion out of it and ask a lot of questions of like, okay, why?
Mm.
Why did you do that? Why did you offer that? Explain it to me because I'm not in your brain. So I don't know what's going on in your brain. And then I read a lot of books. I love, 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 love Simon Sinek's book. I always butcher the name, but it's like The Power of Why or Finding
Hmm.
Your Why. So I read that book last year. And then I also, another big one was Eat That Frog by
Mm.
Brian Tracy. And it really talks about the frog is the task, the thing that a lot of us put off, but is going to get us closer to whatever our goal is or whatever we need to do. And the best year yet. And I don't remember the author of that book, but those were the three books that I really kind of go on repeat sometimes. I'll reread them or I'll pull my notes because I type up all of my notes after I read books just so that I have them there and I actually audio type them. I my transcription on my computer. But to me, that helps make it stick
Hmm.
versus just like reading a book and then throwing it away. So I really am intentional when I spend the time to read a book, actually putting the pieces into place, or else you kind of just wasted your time.
Talking about this, eat the biggest frog first. I feel like there are also different strategies. Some people tell that it's better to start with the hardest task first and then go to smaller tasks. Some people like are getting motivated by starting like with five smaller tasks and they come into. I'm curious, like, what is your approach? How do you deal with tasks?
So first and foremost, at the beginning of every day, I kind of create I call it my six most important things list is what are my biggest focuses for the day? And then I honestly plan out which one I'm going to tackle first based on what is going on in my day. So I will look and see if I've kind of front loaded my morning, then I won't focus on the tasks on my list until I have a break in my
Mm.
schedule. Because I really try to align my tasks with where I'm at mentally and emotionally. I tend to be someone that later morning, I have a little bit more energy. And then I have another spurt of energy like in the middle of the afternoon around 2 or 3. And so that is when I block time in my calendar to do the most mentally draining task or that require the most creativity because I know that's when I'm in my good emotional place. But then, like, first thing in the morning, it's okay, what are some of those more menial tasks that don't require as much brain power while my brain is kickstarting and my coffee's setting in? So maybe it's checking the emails, or maybe it's checking in with my team for the day, or looking at my calendar for the day and figuring out, okay, is there any prep work for any of these meetings that need to be done? But then, like, more creative and intentional tasks like writing my newsletter, doing some of that client work, trying to save those for the times with more focus and more energy.
Usually freelancers are not becoming freelancers like from scratch, like after the school or after the university. I'll be a freelancer. Usually they transition from 9 to 5 work, and one thing that they have to deal with is like mindset. It's totally different mindset when you're working a full time or when you're freelancing. So I'm curious from your experience, what are some key mindset shifts that freelancers need to make to grow their businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I see that a lot with people that I talk to, clients that I serve, is you still need to have that boss and employee mentality like you would in a normal job. So, like I mentioned, I set my 6 most important things list. That's my boss mentality
Mm.
is, okay, what are the most important things that I have to get done today to set me up for success? And then I have to switch into the employee mindset of, I need to follow the plan that I set. And sometimes that means like removing distractions, like putting my devices on do not disturb or going and working at a coffee shop if I'm afraid I'm going to get distracted at home. And then again, being in touch with my like mindset and emotions. If I'm noticing that I'm getting really frustrated or I'm feeling really anxious or I'm not in a good emotional place, to me, I have to have the resolve to be able to walk away for a couple of minutes. Instead of pushing through and pushing through, I want to be really careful about what energy am I putting out there when I'm talking with my clients or if I'm talking with my team or putting together a social media post. And so I think one of the biggest mindset shifts for me was that listening to myself versus just pushing through, pushing through, pushing through. If I'm not in a good place emotionally, I should not be interfacing with clients or potential clients and giving myself permission that if I'm not in that place,
Mm.
what can I do to fix it? So maybe it's I need to go exercise. Maybe it's I need to walk away from my computer for 10 minutes and go stand outside when it is actually sunny. Maybe it's cuddling with my dogs for a couple of minutes. But I think we as visionaries and we as the people who are hardworking enough to do freelance or become an entrepreneur, we have this mindset that we have to just push through at all costs, and it's not true. It's not always worth it to push through if you're actually doing more harm than good.
How do you differentiate between the need of really making a pause and procrastination?
That's a really good question. Um, I think a lot of it to me comes down to what thoughts are going through my brain. If I'm really frustrated or if I'm really angry, like kind of identifying the emotion behind the thought, then it's normally like, okay, I need to take a break. But if it's just like a distraction of, ooh, let me just go search through social media or, ooh, let me go watch TV because I don't want to think, that's more of the distraction mentality and the procrastination. um, one thing that I did, I got some training on last year and has really, really helped me, is it's a free assessment called the Saboteurs Assessment through Positive Intelligence. And it tells you what those self-sabotaging thoughts are and
Mm.
how they kind of show up in your life. And for me, controller is number one. I like to have control. And so that's when I can start identifying if I'm like feeling the need to take control or I'm feeling anxious because maybe it's been only 12 hours since a client responded to me. I'm like, okay, not everyone sits at their email all day long. That is a good cue to me of, hey, let's take a break. Let's take a step back. Let's do something that brings you joy so that you're not just sitting here like looking at your computer, like, okay, they haven't responded. Okay, my team member hasn't texted me back. It's been 5 minutes. It's always looking at that like deeper thought, that second thought.
You reminded me something from community building because there is I don't remember who said this quote, but if you are building if you are a community builder, you are the only one person who is paid for being active in the community. And
Exactly.
at some moment, I was like, "Oh my God, nobody's answering me! Like they hate me. I'm doing like really bad job." But then I understood that people have lives that they can really work. They can be with their families, whatever. And then like I understood that we are living in async world. Like if someone is not answering for a week, maybe it's a bad sign. Maybe I should follow up. But
Yeah,
up to 1 week, yeah, it's kind of okay-ish.
exactly.
And you talk also a lot about partnerships, and I totally understand that it's impossible to do everything by yourself and to like become a really successful freelancer. Maybe, yes, maybe there are some unicorns who do everything by yourself and like they're amazing. I haven't heard about them, but most likely somewhere they are. Nobody saw unicorns, but people say they exist. So how can freelancers use partnerships like really strategically, and what kind of partnerships to accelerate their business growth?
I love this question because it was something I struggled with for a really long time. And actually, now it's something that I train on, ironically enough. So for me, it's going to go back again to that why. Everything ties back to the why. But like, why do you need partnerships? So, like you mentioned, Yuri, part of it is you can't do everything alone. You're not good at everything, right? Like, no one can be. But it also makes freelancing, entrepreneurship a little less lonely. And so when you're thinking about partnerships, first and foremost is more is not always better.
Mm,
So I always tell people, like, think about just your first handful of partnerships. And then once you figure out kind of who you'd want to partner with or what kind of businesses or freelancers you'd want to partner with, and you know the why, start kind of intentionally searching for them. They could be referral partners. So maybe they offer a non-competing but complementary service. So maybe if you do, strategy coaching and you want someone that does like the systems operation piece, like I have a friend that I partner with and she does like the behind the scenes systems work, but I help you like plan it all out. And so it's a very good partnership because once people get to that place of really their strategies nailed down, they know what to do, she can come in and say, and here's the systems to help you do it. So figuring out what kind of people would complement what you already offer so that your clients can get a really good experience. Um, I always say too, partnering for a workshop or an event is a really good way to bring two experts together and also kind of split up the work. I have a couple partnerships for events that I'm doing this year. I've done LinkedIn Lives. I'm doing a conference this year. I'm actually doing my first mastermind, my group mastermind that starts in the summer. And doing it with someone else makes it more fun and
mm.
still allows me to show up as my best self. And then finding those places and spaces in which you can build authentic community. And that's often where those partnerships are going to come from. Because when you're pouring into people, they'll pour back into you. When people can sense that you're not just in it for a quick sale, but you really want to see how you're there to help and support, that's when people learn to trust you. And partnerships don't just happen overnight. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes attention, and it takes building trust, right? Like if you're bringing someone into your world, into your business, you need to make sure that you trust them and then have some kind of agreement in place, like a partnership agreement, so that both parties are on the same page and you're both protected. No one wants to ever think that someone's going to screw them over. And of course, you don't want to go into business with people that could screw you over, but you want something written out that clearly lays out expectations for both parties and why this partnership is happening.
I also know that it's good when you have an agreement for sure. But sometimes, no matter how amazing people are, sometimes you just can't click on a human level. So I'm curious, how do you know that you are making a good partnership with someone?
Yeah, I always say like do a little trial run first. Maybe it's, a workshop, a LinkedIn Live, a podcast recording to see what energy comes out and to see if your messages are competing or not, and then start getting into the planning of potential service collaboration. I think, at the beginning, like I said, I wanted to do all things and be all things for all people. And so I was asking everyone, like, do you want a partner? Do you want a partner? Do you want a partner? And it got exhausting, in all honesty. And so now, as I am listening to what people offer or what people do, who they serve, I use that strategic brain of
Mm.
mine and think, okay, what could partnership look like? But even if we don't partner on a service, what kind of referrals or connections can I offer to them so they may be more willing to help me in return too? I'm really big about building connections with people. And so even if we can't partner on a service or a webinar, if I help them grow their network and grow their business, chances are they're going to be willing to do that in return.
And you never know when it will be happy. Sometimes you just invest in other people's, like you are
Yeah,
helping them as much as you can and without expecting anything in return. And then one day they're like, oh, by the way, I have a client for you. Or, oh, by the way, I have this gig for you. So yeah, it's
exactly.
like Give value first, I would say.
Exactly, exactly.
You mentioned like doing a podcast. I didn't think about this before, actually, but I've done more than 200 conversations already, and yeah, it works.
Mhm.
So it helps to understand like what energy is a person has. Like, should we continue like working together? Sometimes should we?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a great point. Thank you for bringing it out. And it's always, at least for me personally, it's always about having some habits or routines that you can follow like day to day to day in order to grow the business, because you can't be, at least I can't be, discovering some new things and trying some new paths, and as you've said, that you can't just jump on any opportunity that you see. So from your perspective, from your experience, what is just one habit or routine that freelancers have to implement into their life, professional life, to maintain this clarity and resilience during their business journey?
So I think that as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, as a visionary, it's really easy to get into the mindset that you constantly have to be doing in order to see growth and success. And so I think for me, something I had to learn very early on and am really intentional about right now is setting boundaries, both personally and professionally. Like I cannot work 24/7 and I still have to pour into myself and into my relationships in order to show up as my best self. If you are constantly giving and never refilling your cup, you're going to run dry and you're going to lead yourself to burnout. I mean, I see it all the time. I've experienced it, and it's actually part of why starting last week, I started writing a book on burnout prevention for leaders, for entrepreneurs, for high level thinkers, because a lot of us are tied to our accomplishments and are tied to our outcomes and outputs. But it's okay. It's actually honorable to take care of yourself too. And so, regardless of what level you are in your business journey, set those habits, set those intentions, put things into your schedule. Like I put into my schedule at the beginning of every week, when am I going to the gym? When am I spending time with my husband? When am I disconnecting and not working or not doing anything other than vegging out on my couch? Because, yes, that is still okay to do. But then it allows me to show up in my business in a healthier, stronger way because I'm not just making work my whole life. There's other pieces to life too.
I will use it like it's a quote. It's okay to rest. Faith
Yes,
Rivera.
it is needed to rest. It is honorable to rest.
Faith, I really wish to have the sky's the limit to this conversation, but time is the limit. So the final question: what is your favorite food?
Ooh, I don't know that I can choose just one, but I'll just say a general cuisine. I absolutely love Italian food. I can eat any kind of pasta, risotto, any kind of Mediterranean dish. That is like one of my key bucket list items is to go and do a tour of Italy someday with my husband. So give me any of the fresh pasta and I'm there.
And what is the best way to connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is probably through LinkedIn, or just head over to my website, alosavitas.com, and there's a little button on my website where you can book a virtual coffee chat.
Got it. Faith, thank you so much for sharing your experience, and it's been such a pleasure to hear and learn from you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button, 5 stars, and share it with your friend. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.